Hi everyone, here's class number 7 of from Machloka to Rebellion. Here we go. We looked at a page like this. This is a page of Talmud that actually deals with our section. We said Ben Serer Moret. There's our title right there. Perek Shmini, chapter 8 of the Maseket or Talmud book of Sanhedrin, which deals with, that's a court of 70. So we're dealing with kind of law and court. Page number Ayin Aleph, which is 71. We see these terms here, matnitim, which points out that this is Mishnah, Gemara, which points to here's where the Talmud section begins. How many more times on this page do we see this word matnitim? And how many more times on the page do we see the word Gemara? So try to find those on the page. Again, matnitim means now I'm quoting, I'm showing you something. The Mishnah. Gemara means we're either quoting or doing something with the Mishnah. All right, so here we go, everyone. Oh, and right, we asked the question, what is Talmud and what is Gemara and what's the difference between the two? And this little from Chabad.org, this little statement was good. In many instances, the word Talmud itself was removed from the text of the Talmud and replaced with Gemara. So even though this is the Talmud here, we call it Gemara, which kind of means the same thing. Gemara means learn. Apparently, this was done to avoid Christian censors who hated the Talmud, which they perceived as a threat to their tradition. So when people were like, oh, no, we're not studying Talmud, we're studying Gemara. And so they were kind of like a way to get around the hatred. All right, let's move on. Okay, so here is where we were, and we read this in class as we were leaving, right? And we were looking at the case of someone who is a ganef, someone who is a stealer in the house of their in a certain house, and they used the money that was stolen to buy either meat and wine, and they ate and drunk that in the house of their parents' house or the other. So we decided that there was one of these things that made someone a ben Surah Moreh. And let's just read through what it says, because we go through it. The Gemara explains the reasons for the various halachot taught in the Mishnah. If he stole that which belonged to his father and ate on his father's property, even though this is accessible to him and it is easy for him to steal, he is nonetheless afraid that his father will see him eating what he has stolen, and therefore he will not be drawn after his action to further evil. So this is kind of a very important piece here. The reasoning behind why someone is or is not a ben Serer Moreh, what is the determining factor? You're going to see it come up again, and I'll ask it at the end of this. If he stole that which belonged to others and ate on the property of others, even though he's not afraid of them, as they don't know him or watch over him, this theft is not easily accessible, right? He doesn't know where that stuff is, and it's performed on someone else's property. Therefore, he will not be drawn to additional sin. And all the more so if he stole that which belonged to others and ate in his father's property, in which case it is not accessible to him. He is also afraid of his father. Therefore, he is not liable unless he steals that which belongs to his father and eat on the property of others, in which case it is easily accessible to him, right? He knows where it is, and he's not afraid because he's eating somewhere where no one's watching over him. And there is concern that he will be drawn after his action to additional sin. So again, really what I want to know is there's something in mind even before this Mishnah begins that says a person is a ben Serer Moreh, not necessarily because at that exact moment they are really bad, but what is it that they are concerned about? Great. Now what I want you to do is I want you to go to what we're going to do right now is I'd like you to go and listen to a very traditional person explain this bit of Talmud. And I want you to watch, and it's going to be a little weird. He's going to speak in kind of almost like a, a, a Hebrew / English. So he's going to add Hebrew words along the way. But he's going to be explaining our Mishnah, if we start with minute 20, and he's going to be and end with minute 445, and he's going to be discussing the Gemara. And I want you to see if you can follow along. And I've got some questions that I'm going to be asking you at the end, or I'll ask them to you right now. So question number 1 is, I want you to fill in the blank of not the food, but. Question number 2 is, I want you to translate how he translates, or he understands the words mamshich. He's going to say that a bunch of times, mamshich, and you'll see I have it as a vocabulary in a second. And the and then the last question um, is tell me about what he talks about. Why does he talk about fear factor? And you'll see he talks specifically about that. So those are the three questions. Before you start, three words that we need to know that he's going to bring up when he's speaking. So he says the word bait, which comes from the Hebrew word nivat, which means to fear. Uh, shachiach, which means around or available. And so interesting that actually in Hebrew, the word in modern Hebrew, the word lishkoach means the exact opposite, which means to forget or not have around, right? But that for some reason the Aramaic is around or available. And moshech, he's going to talk about this. Mamshich is the word he's going to say, but it comes from the word mashach, or actually I have it on this page here, himshich, which means to continue, to be attracted to continually. So those are the words he's going to use. Again, I would play it here if I could hear the sound, but it won't come up on this machine. So you're going to have to go out of this. You're going to have to find this place, dafchaim.org, Daf Shior Sanhedrin Sun 21. You should be able to hopefully copy this, and I'll also place it in the in a note right now, so you can you can kind of use that and copy and paste it there. So that might be a little bit more live. Again, it's going to be a little strange, but this is a great example of a very traditional way that someone learns Talmud. Great. So now let's go back to our Mishnah. We've got a few questions to ask you. So first of all, we see this this comment at the end of the Mishnah where we've been talking about being a ganef in the reshut, or in the public space of father, or reshut of others. And we said he only becomes a ben surah mareh if he ganaved from his father and ate in the reshut of others, because that is mamshich, or that's something that will kind of keep on continuing happening. And I really love the way Nathan said it in class, that this is the place where there's going to feel like there's going to be a lot of success. So if probability wise, if the person had to choose any of these, they're going to choose this one. So this is the one we really need to be worried about. This is going to cause that person the easiest way to become a ben surah mareh, the most tempting opportunity. Maybe that's a cool way. Okay, now we're going to look at Rabbi Yossi, son of Rabbi Yehuda, who says he only becomes a ben surah mareh if he ganaved from his mother and father and ate it in the reshut of others. So first of all, Rabbi Yossi is directly responding to which of these cases? 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay. And now Rabbi Yossi, what does Rabbi Yossi do? Rabbi Yossi is either making the situation for the ben surah mareh. Is he making it easier to become a ben surah mareh, or is he making it harder to become a ben surah mareh? So basically, would a ben surah mareh be like, oh, I really like what you're saying, Rabbi Yossi, or would they be, I really hate what you're saying? Okay. Next one. Oh, sorry. Next one. Wait a second. We've heard about this guy, Rabbi Yossi, once before. Let's look at that mission again. Is he consistent here with what he did there? Let's go look at Rabbi Yossi again. And here he is right here. Where does he come? Do you see where he is? Which part? Where is Rabbi Yossi speaking? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Which line? And oh, all right, there he is right here. Now, is Rabbi Yossi consistent in what he does here and what he does there? Please explain. What I love is actually, I find that actually Rabbi Yossi is consistent in both cases. He's basically taking the measurement that makes someone, or the definition of making someone a ben surah mareh, and basically makes it narrower by, in one case, raising the amount that you need to eat. And in the other case, basically saying, no, you don't just steal from one, you have to steal from both of them. Okay. Number 3, here's my new question. What would be a case? So Rabbi Yossi, son of Bar, says you have to be stealing, and the stealing actually has to be stealing from his mom and his dad. Now, I don't know. Well, first of all, do you think this is mom and dad at the exact same time, or is this first stealing from mom and doing this, and then stealing from dad? Which actually you think is the answer here, because it's a little bit ambiguous. Okay. And then my next question is, what would be a case of someone stealing only from a mom, or only from a dad, but not from the other one? Like, what would be a case in which that would actually be true? Basically, everything from before. Like, isn't all stealing from moms, from both mom and dad together? Um, Great. We're going to skip that question, and I just wrote here. Rabbi Light translates others, right, as friends at first. Is that a fair translation or not? How are others different than friends as far as accessibility of stolen items and of fear factor? So how do those things does eating it in the house of a friend versus eating in the house of others make it easier or harder to become a Ben Sura Mareh? Please explain that. All right, now back to our Mishnah number 3. Oh, sorry. Now back to we have a little piece of Talmud here. Okay, so, and this is, I like this piece of Talmud a lot. Okay, so here we go. We got a bunch of big ping and pong coming up right here. And so here we have it. So Rav Yossi said, you're only chayav for being a Ben Sura Moreh when you're a ganef from both your mom and your dad. And I think, and at least the way the Pong side is going to respond is they're going to say it's not in moments in time where you're stealing from one, not the other. You're kind of stealing one item that belongs to both of them together. Okay. And the Pong side is going to disagree with the Ping side by saying something like, what do you think? What do they have to say, or what do they have to kind of prove at this point for the Pong side to kind of make a good argument? Okay, and so what does actually the Pong side actually say? And I have like one hint to help you out, because the Pong side actually is going to object to the Ping side by thinking about the status of women in relationship to a man when man and women are married, but not with the way we live today, but kind of back in this period of time. And if you were right, so what might the Pong say about this idea of because what is Rav Yossi actually saying? And let me just say this, right? You're chayav for being a mitzvah when you're a ganef from both your mom and your dad. That means you're stealing from your mom and you're stealing from your dad. So that supposes something, a reality that actually the Pong side is going to really question. So can you figure that out? Okay, and what's the reality? The Pong side is saying, wait a second, we live in a world where nothing belongs to a mom. When a mom marries a dad, everything the mom has belongs now to the dad. There's no such thing as something belonging to a woman. Now, it's funny because, right, we would be like, of course there's situations all the time. I can think of a lot of situations of things that belong to me and don't belong to my wife, or maybe not, actually. I'm not quite sure. But in that time in history, there was never that to be the case. So the Pong side has a legitimate argument here. Can it actually be that there's something that belongs to the mom and doesn't belong to the dad, meaning that basically it all belongs to the dad, nothing belongs to the mom? So how can you tell me that there's a case of the mom actually having something that belongs to her? So normally, so the Pink side's going to say, oh yeah, now I'm in a little bit of a pickle here. I have to figure out a situation where actually something does belong to the mom, that it's stealable, right? Something belongs to the mom and dad, and it actually does belong not just to the dad, but to both of them, and it's stealable. What could that be? So, any ideas? This is a hard one. Okay. We do live in a world. So the Ping side is saying, I agree with you, Pong. You're right. We live in a world where almost everything belongs to the dad. So when the mom enters that relationship, it all belongs to the dad, and the mom doesn't really own anything. But we're talking here about a very specific case, about a meal that was prepared for both the mom and the dad, meaning that that if the mom wasn't there, this meal wouldn't have been created. If the dad wasn't there, this meal wouldn't have been created. It's something about the mom and dad being together that makes this meal possible. So is this a case? This is a case where the mom does has so in this case the mom does have that have some kind of ownership over some of that food. I'm sorry, I wrote that really weird. this is a case where the mom does have an ownership because that meal is being made for the very fact that she is present in this relationship, right? So she does have ownership over that food. So what did the Pong side do here? The Pong side basically said, "Oh yeah, Pink side, I agree with you. I'm talking about a much more specific situation, and this situation is true." But the Pong side is going to say something. Wait a second. But don't you remember what we learned earlier? We learned earlier that it says that Rav Huna said, "You're only chayav for being a ben sureh mareh if you buy meat and eat it, and if you buy wine and drink it." So my question to you is, how is this a good Pong argument? What is he arguing with the Ping about? With the Ping side about? What is he arguing with Rabbi Yossi about? And it's not really, I mean, is he arguing with, he's really arguing with this right here, right? So what is he arguing? And there it is. Wait a minute. Didn't we learn earlier that you only become a Ben Surah Mareh when you steal money and buy food with that money? Right? Because this is what he says here, right? Is if you buy meat and eat it, and if you buy wine and drink it, right? So you're stealing that money, you're buying meat and eating it, you're stealing that wine, you're buying it and drinking it, right? So didn't we learn earlier that you only become a Ben Surah when you steal money and buy food with it? And with that money, here in our case, he's stealing the food and wine itself, right? So you just told me about to justify your claim, Rabbi Yossi, that it's talking about a meal that was created for the mom and the dad. But if the guy is stealing from that, then of course he's not guilty. So what can the Ping side say now about that meal? That's in order to show that Rabbi Yossi was not talking that what Rabbi Yossi was talking about is not a case of someone stealing blank, but actually stealing blank. What's the thing he wants to say? I'm not stealing this, but I am stealing that. And of course, what is the answer? Rabbi Yossi was talking not about a case of someone stealing food, right, which would be the Pong side would be correct, but actually it's a case of stealing money. Right? And that's what, okay, fine. When we're not talking about, then we are not talking about the meal itself. We are talking about the money that was set aside for the purchase of her goods for that meal that was going to be made for the mom and dad. So in this sense, we had two Pongs that tried to disagree with the Ping, but each time we kind of came back and said, oh, all right. And so we had, right, we thought it might have been over here, but he came back. And so then we see that actually Rav Yossi is correct. There is a case where Rab Yossi, the reason why Rab Yossi was said is because there is a case where both the man and woman have ownership. When is that case? Right. When is that case? That case is when there has been an amount of a meal set aside for the both of them, and the meal wasn't made yet, but the money for that meal was set aside. So that meal, that money to purchase that meal for the mom and dad, that actually in some way belongs to the woman itself. Right. Right. Okay. Good. So that was a neat piece of Talmud. Okay. The next piece, the word that, first of all, I'm going to go over all these words in a second, but the word that is a new word, which is ra'ui, which actually is a modern Hebrew word too. Ra'ui means suitable or fit or appropriate. But make sure you know all these words because we're going to be tested on them right now. Here we go. Okay. So stubborn and rebellious child is, oh, actually, I don't think we go this way. We try to do it the other way. All right, we're gonna skip this, but here are all of our words that we should know so far. And ra'ui means suitable, fit, or appropriate. Okay, and here's our Mishnah number 4. Let's read through it. If his father wants, Haya Aviv Rotzeh wants what, by the way? And his mother doesn't want. Wants what? Right. If his father wants him to be a Ben Torah Mareh, and if his mother doesn't want, if his father doesn't want, and if his mother does want, he doesn't become a Ben Torah Mareh until both of them want. Rav Yehuda said, if his mom was not ra'ui for his father, and we saw that word ra'ui means suitable, fit, or appropriate, he does not become a Ben Sorer U Moreh. So interesting. Let's go. We have some questions about this. Look at line number 1. What does the father want and mother not want? I kind of answered that question, right? That should be an easy one, right? Number two, do you think there's a reason why the mother who doesn't want comes in the first case of our Mishnah, and the mother who does want comes in the second case? What is this Mishnah subtly trying to tell us about the relationship of parents to their son? Who has actually the stronger relationship? Meaning, who would be the one who would be more angered by the prospect of taking their child down to a courthouse? And how does this, in a way, try to show just another attempt, subtle attempt, of the Mishnah to make it even harder and harder to be a ben sorer u'moreh? Okay. Um, he doesn't become a ben sorer u'moreh until both of them want. How come there's no shena amar after row number 3? Look at the Torah text below for a moment. What should be the quote that supports this idea? There is a quote from the Torah that should support this idea that he doesn't become a ben sorer u'moreh until both of them want. What is that? Write down those words. There it is right here. This son of ours is disloyal. Huh? Oh, sorry, until both of them want. What are those words? Let's see if we can find them. His father and his mother shall take hold of him, right? So they shall say, this son of ours is disloyal, right? So it's kind of both of them wanting. I don't know. It's interesting. Okay, a few other questions. Check back over the last Mishnayot that we've been talking about. Where have we seen Rabbi Yehuda last? Who is he related to? And is his view consistent here with what he says earlier? Is it? Do you think it is? So here is Rabbi. Where's Rabbi Yehuda on this page? Is he in line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, line 5, line 6? Who is Rabbi Yehuda? And again, let's go back. Who is he related to? And is his view consistent with what he's saying earlier? So Rabbi Yehuda says, if his mom was not appropriate for his father, he does not become a ben sorer u'moreh. Good. There it was. Okay. So what does row 5 mean? What does the word appropriate or fitting mean? Is appropriate talking about something internal or external? Next question. If you recall, one of the last pieces of Talmud that we looked at was not a ping-pong piece of Mishnah, it was rather an explanation what the Mishnah means piece of Talmud, right? We saw that, and right, with he was a ganef from the father's house and ate in the reshut of others, right. This is exactly what's going to happen in our next piece of Talmud with the Mishnah. As you can imagine, if we're confused about the idea of the word appropriate, ra'ui, what that means, then so is the Talmud. The Talmud begins by looking at the words of the Torah, specifically the words that are circled. The Talmud focuses on a more accurate translation of the words that are circled. By the way, we did this before with the very first words, right? And that's where we got the idea that Aaron brought up in class about the man-child, right? So the Talmud focuses on a more accurate translation of the words that are circled. The more accurate translation is, this son of ours is disloyal and defiant. He does not listen to our voice. Now compare that for a second with the translation with the one below, and which is, this son of ours is disloyal and defiant. He does not listen to us. So what's the difference? And what do you think the Talmud is going to say afterwards? Okay, so here's my hint. This son of ours is disloyal and defiant. He does not listen to our voice. And just compare that for a second with, compare the accurate translation with the one below. Listen to us. So what's going on here? What do you think the Talmud is going to say? Hint number 2. If the boy's mom had a voice and the boy's dad had a voice, then what should the Torah verse have said? It should have said, this son of ours is disloyal and defiant. He does not listen to our... Anyone? Well, what does it say? This son of ours is disloyal. He does not listen to our voice. What should it say, though? That's right. It should say voices. So it's weird. Why is it saying voice? Now, can you figure out what the Talmud might say? Okay, so let's compare. Here's what the Torah does say. This son of ours is disloyal and defiant. He does not listen to our voice. But what the Torah should have said is, this son of ours is disloyal and defiant. He does not listen to our voices. Seems like the Torah has made a mistake by saying voice instead of voices. maybe the Torah has not made a mistake and wrote the word voice instead of the more logical voices in order to teach us something about the voice of the mom and the voice of the dad that we would not have known otherwise. What might be that something? Any idea? And if you want the idea, you can ask not Shayna Birdie, but you can ask her mom, because at Shayna Birdie's mother's birthday party, she actually said this answer already. So everyone call up Shayna or text Shayna and say, what did your mom say at her birthday party to talk to us about, to tell us about something about the mom and dad and of the Ben Surer Moreh that will make that person not a Ben Surer Moreh, right? So quickly, text, go, go, go. Okay, next. The Gemara asks the question, what do the words not Ra'ui mean? The Gemara answers, Ra'ui means equal to the boy's father, and not Ra'ui means not equal to the boy's father. So my question is, what does equal mean? The words here are shaveh, 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 right? Equal. What does equal mean? Any ideas there? All right. The Gemara asks, what do the words not appropriate mean? The Gemara answers, appropriate means equal to the boy's father, and not appropriate means not equal to the boy's father. Question, what does equal mean? There is a Braita. This is what comes next right here. There is a Braita. And what did I say a Braita was? A Braita was basically is something that is as strong as a Mishnah, but for some reason was not included in the Mishnah. You see, this guy Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, when he's writing down the Mishnah, he's got all these bunch of laws. Some he's including, and some he's not. So some he's kind of like, if it's like a piece of paper, right? If it's a piece of paper, and he's saying, oh, I'm going to include this, and that's it. But there's still all this stuff, and so he crumbles up that and throws it in the trash. But someone collected all that stuff in the trash and said, hey, that was on the paper. That's still really important. Let's put that all together. And they put that together in a book called the Tosefta. And the Tosefta is made up of all these different Braitas. And a Braita is basically just the stuff that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi decided not to add to the Mishnah. But it's still as powerful because it's kind of was around at the same time, right? So there's a Braita, and it's introduced here as Tanya Namihachi. There is a Braita that says the exact same thing, and this is what the Braita says. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Im lo haytayu moshav el aviv b'kol u'v'mareh u'v'kol eino naseh ben sureh moreh. If the mom is not equal to the dad with regards to voice, appearance, and height, then the boy who eats enough to become a ben sureh moreh does not, and drinks enough to become a ben sureh moreh, does not become a ben sorer u moreh. So equal really means exact. They have to sound alike. They have to look alike. They have to be alike, right? One mind, one body, one voice, right? How often does that happen? That's a good question. Okay, but I think we'll get to that next time. Bye, everyone.